wanting to experience more, and knowing that we're not meant to do this alone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chronicles of the High-Powered Female CEO. We are in episode 22, and despite Mercury retrograde's attempt to sabotage this interview, I am bringing you to you today, Vanessa Shaw. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hey, Melissa, I'm glad we managed to get these technology hiccups sorted out.
I swear, all week. It's been a thing all week. So, Vanessa, tell us how people typically know you.
So, CEO and founder of the Business Growth Academy based in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we work with successful women entrepreneurs who are, already past that first six-figure mark in business and are looking to scale to 1 million. And I think my clients would know me as probably, the velvet, what does they say, the iron fist and the velvet glove approach to, business coaching, helping them get out of their own way, personal development junkie, and honestly, massive advocate for women in business as well. That's kind of the piece that's really close to my heart.
So beautiful. I feel like there's a lot of business coaches out there, and yet what I've seen of your work is it's not one of these run-of-the-mill business coaching spaces. I guess I'm curious, in your words, what you would say sets you guys apart from kind of what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's multiple things. For a start, I think it's combinations of things that we do. We really have a core philosophy that says your business can only grow by the amount that you're willing to grow yourself. And therefore, we incorporate leadership development and personal development into our coaching program. So it's not just strategies and tactics, right? Which is kind of somewhat easy to teach, and frankly one can buy a book for a lot of that, or Google. But it's that combination of really understanding where people are getting in their own way and getting a lot deeper insight and self-awareness into who they want to be in the world, what do they want to be role modeling, and really what do they stand for. So I think that's one side of it. The other side of the business coaching is it's really important to look at numbers in business. When you're a business coach needs to help people know their revenues, their financials, their profit, the salary, help them build sales and everything. And yet there are a lot of people that call themselves business coaches and never ever look at those things. So we have a big financial component to our programs, which brings about a lot of transparency and really helps us dig into those numbers with our clients so that they are financially empowered. And again, that's a piece I'm really proud of. It'd be easy not to do it, and kind of talk about the fluff. But for me, that's where the rubber hits the road, and that's where we see real tangible results and real dollars in bank accounts.
Love that. And you have quite a decent sized team too. How many people do you have in your organization?
So right now, kind of, it fluctuates. We're a core team of about 6.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so cool. Good. Okay, great, Vanessa. So, as I said before, what we really care about here is your heart. We love hearing all the things that you've created, and that's why we want to hear about your heart and what it's taken for you to get to this level of success. And so let's start right out the door with, I want to know, what are the things that are most precious or even sacred to you, the things that you really hold close to your heart?
Yes, it's such a great question. I think, the first thing comes up are people, right? So my husband, my kids, and I put my furry kids in there as well, kind of inner circle. Obviously some very special friends, people that, really know me deeply, and we have very deep conversations. Some key extended family members. But then the other side of that, I think, which is an intimate side, is really my own desires, my own dreams and desires are something I consider, intimate and very sacred.
I love that. I feel that when you said that. I think it says something about who you are and the work that you've done to acknowledge that your desires are sacred. It makes me emotional. I'm like, that needs to be shouted from the rooftops for all women everywhere.
Well, I think it's easy to say, and listen, it's not, I mean, I truly, those people are really important to me, but I think that's what we expect, right, people to say. And yes, that's true. And, you know, my inner world of, as I say, what I'm aspiring, you know, my next steps, what I'm aspiring to achieve, what I'm really feeling called to do. Yes, that is a very sacred, intimate place as well. And I don't think we have enough honoring in the world that we live in of our own desires and really understanding how powerful they can be as a force for creating transformation and change in the world.
So, do you think that you would have said the same thing to this question about what do you hold precious and sacred when you were, say, 20 or even when you were, say, 5 years old?
Great question. Interestingly enough, because I've often talked about this story, you know, when I'm speaking or public speaking, I was aware of those desires, not probably at 5, but I think I became really aware of them and a desire for more and to be different and kind of stand out in the world, probably around the age of 8 or 9, and very aware. And for whatever reason, some of them got shut down, you know, that they were wrong, I was abnormal, I needed to be content with status quo. And so they got buried, and really got buried for quite some time. And it would have been, gosh, I'm just trying to think. I probably might have been more in my early 30s when I then started to really tap back into those desires again and really listen to what was going on inside of me. And
Mhm.
I have to say it was quite a painful time. It's not wasn't something that was, oh yay, this is happening, let's just go for it. It was really causing me to question a lot of what I was doing, my direction, where I wanted to be headed with my business. By then my kids were older and I was kind of in private practice for myself as a coach. And it started to cause a lot of turmoil in my own life as I realized those desires were getting stronger and stronger, and I wanted to create change, and I needed to change myself. And a lot of things that I had held to be true, patterns that I could see in my life, in let's say legacies perhaps that were handed down to me through, you know, through my own family and generations. All of a sudden I was questioning everything, so everything was up for grabs, and I realized that the path that I was on didn't have to be the path that I was continuing to go on. So there was that tension of like tapping into those desires, and of course I think sometimes we just try and like
Push them down.
down, right? Go away. Or we you know, we have self-doubt, we second guess them. Oh, it's nothing, you know, it's just a, but the more I tried to ignore, kind of the stronger they became. And there was a time, and I don't think I've really shared this, Melissa. There was a time I'd gone to a conference, I think it was in Florida, at the time I was living in Europe, and these desires were so like strong inside of me. I mean, I just felt like a burning ball of fire. I just didn't know what to do, and I was incredibly restless. And I went and had, which is not the sort of thing that Vanessa Shaw normally does, by the way. I went and did an aura reading, and I just felt very called, called to it, as you are, right? When you start looking, you know, looking for direction. And the aura reading came out as absolutely bright, vivid red. And so the person that did the reading, they were like, wow, you must be in a massive state of transformation. Like this, all of this energy that's going on around you. He's like, this is so rare. We don't typically see it like this. I was like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? But it was clearly there was just a lot of energy going on that I needed to, you know, find a channel for.
Wow. What was the like what was the moment when you, or what was it that pushed you to go like, oh, like I actually do need to like pick up and pivot?
I think there was just a point where I was feeling so uncomfortable with the status quo. And I was, as I say, I was questioning everything. I was living in Switzerland at the time, very happy. And by the way, I think that was the key. I was happy. I wasn't unhappy, right? There wasn't some massive breakdown happening in my life. You know, when there's other big breakdowns, perhaps it's easier to pivot. But in my case, it felt like I had to create it for myself. I was really happily married. My private coaching practice was doing well, and yet it was this desire for more. And I honestly can't remember. I don't think there was one moment per se, but a whole load of things that kind of came together. And it was this realization that if I stayed on the path that I was on, my future was very, very predictable. And it was as predictable as sort of the women's futures had been before me. And I realized that I was going to be just carrying on this pattern, which wasn't a bad pattern, but it was like, wow, I've got an opportunity to stop and do something different. And it was around that time, and I was probably about 40 at the time. I was like, wow, it feels like my next 40 years is just more of this. And I want more, and I want something that was different. And it was those feelings and that thinking that got me on the path to ultimately landing in the States 10 years ago, because I felt really called to actually leave Europe, come to the States. I'd come to Arizona several times. I just felt very attracted, very pulled to the energy here. And it didn't make rational sense at all. There was no rational sense to it, but it was just like this deeper knowing of like, that's where I'm supposed to be. And ended up making the decision to come here, and within about 11 months had sold up everything in Europe and actually landed here in Scottsdale, which was 10 years ago in July.
Wow, that's so amazing.
It's kind of radical at the time.
You've mentioned a couple of times this connection to your female lineage and how that influenced how you were looking at yourself, and how that influenced how you framed your whole way of doing life, and then how you framed this decision. Like, I don't know, can you speak to that some more? This relationship with your female ancestors?
Totally, because again, it's like there's nothing bad there, right? In my particular case, it's not like there's some massive trauma. It was more the case that when I started to look at women like my mother, my grandmother, the women that were kind of in my life, there was a path. And the path was very much one of be happily married, support your husband, typically be a stay-at-home mum, which is what I did for 10 years. And if anything, if you go back out to work, it's, kind of like the value was in being a mother, bringing up children well, running a beautiful home. And if you go back out to work, it's very much for supplementary income, kind of like, the fun stuff on the side. But it's not about, there was no career women, no business women, not earning your own money. And the other piece that I saw in that lineage as well was that all the women before me had actually been divorced. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Wow. So there were these patterns there. And as I say, not that it was, really negative and that the other women were unhappy, but I looked at that and I saw that I was just following the exact same track. I wasn't questioning, Melissa, that there were other options available to me. I think that was the piece when I had that turning point of, oh, hang on a minute, I'm being called for more. And who knows, perhaps my mother was too, perhaps my grandmother was too, but they didn't listen to it. For me, I chose to listen to it. And there was a big piece there around going into business for myself, wanting to create financial empowerment for myself, really wanting to be free to have those choices, not be dependent on kind of a husband for my, future financial security. And so that was the piece that I started to seek to change, because I realized otherwise I was just carrying on that lineage.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for sharing that. I think that that's so relatable to so many of us in this generation. You know, and with your journey, I have seen over and over that when a woman steps courageously into her vision, everything that she holds most precious and sacred often fall under attack. And so here you were, a stay-at-home mom, and then made this huge pivot and shift, and you know, have built an empire, but you still love your husband and children. Have you seen that be true for you? That as you pursue success and the impact that you knew you were meant to create here on the planet, how have you seen like those things that are precious and sacred to you, kind of like being questioned or being shaken?
So fortunately with the family, and I think that was the start of this, you know, what's been very sacred to me in terms of that inner circle has remained sacred. So I was very conscientious that, you know, I wanted all of those things to stay intact. That, you know, actually I'm celebrating tomorrow 27 years of marriage with my husband. So we've
Congratulations.
navigated a lot together. But for sure, there are breakdowns, right? This is always the risk of when we want to play bigger and we're called to do something, there's always some risk. So I think personally, there was a lot of breakdowns around me. And again, I'm not talking about necessarily lying on the bathroom floor and not being able to pick myself up off of it, but there have been a few of those moments over the years.
Ditto.
But it's that questioning your identity and, you know, who I thought I was being in the world, who I thought I was meant to be. And now all of a sudden that's looking different. And so I've got to I went from, you know, stay-at-home mom to business owner. Well, that's a pretty significant change. And especially I was supporting my husband in his career. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, no, I'm running my own business as well. And our roles were changing, right? I mean, he now works for me in the business. I mean, we've really done a full role reversal. So I would say there was some of the, you know, a lot of that internal shedding of, you know, who I thought I was supposed to be and what I thought my life was, you know, supposed to look like versus then creating the new one. Inevitably, and I think people don't like to hear this, there's people we lose along the way. There are. I mean, that's just the facts. And I've lost plenty of them. In hindsight, I think we discover things about those people that they're not the ones to accompany us on the journey. But I know when I first was declaring, and I was in my kind of inner circle of stay-at-home mums, and I was declaring that I was training as a coach and wanting to, you know, go into business for myself. I heard indirectly that yes, I was being judged and criticized for it, and other women were saying, "Who the hell does she think she is?" I mean, literally, was saying that, which is incredibly hurtful. Now I can look back on it now years later and realize that that was, you know, that was their projections, right? That was their own insecurities and their own discomfort. It didn't make it any easier for me at the time, and probably still wouldn't today. So I think that losing, you know, there's certain friendships that you think are there for life that they change. The friends that I was available for in those earlier days when, as I say, I had a lot more free time, you know, stay-at-home mum looking after the kids, all of a sudden they weren't as happy when I was studying or I was talking about clients. And then I realized that I want to be in different conversations. Right? You start to shift and grow, and it's like there's a new set of conversations. So yes, there has most definitely been, you know, series of relationships along the way that have, you know, dismantled or changed. What I've also noticed then, I think the good news is you really notice the people that are really for you, no matter what. So those are the friendships that have become so much more sacred because I just came back from Europe, you know, and there's a friend of mine we've known. She said she reminded me, or two of them that I saw. One, we've been friends since I was 18, so that's quite a few years ago. And the other one was probably, gosh, I'm just trying to think when we first met. Probably was about 20. I was probably 23 or 24, and she reminded me. She was like, "We've known each other for 30 years." I was like, really? And again, we've moved to different countries, so have they, and yet those were the friendships that we just pick up where we've left off. And it really doesn't matter what's going on in life or business, like we're there for one another. So I think that's the blessing of I see it differently now, Melissa, that, you know, it's a way of shining the light more powerfully on the people that are really there for you through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And
Yeah.
like those other, they're friends, you know, people say friends for a reason, friends for a season, and it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's the real truth.
It's so interesting. And I find it's a conversation, I think, around misogyny, which I don't think we often associate, because we think misogyny, we think that must come from men. But I think in our day and age, actually, the pressures and the judgments and the mudslinging actually mostly comes from other women around us. And it's like there are certain boxes that we're allowed to be in amongst our peers. And if we stray from that box, you know, I just think it's a reflection that it shakes them up and they don't like it, you know? So, but it's interesting, because as I reflect even on my own life, I'm like, oh yeah, I was that person. I've been that person before that was pointing the finger saying, hey, you, what are you doing? And now I'm so aware of it. I like vow to myself, I will never be that person, because gosh, any woman who's reaching and stretching out of those boxes, whatever direction that looks like I would totally support a woman who was a high powered business owner who felt her heart calling her to be a stay-at-home mom. You know, but you know, she's going to get judged also by her peers. So it's like, can we let go of the boxes, you know?
I agree. And it's true that I do think, you know, again, depending on those circles, right, there's so many different boxes that we're supposed to be in this either or world, particularly for women.
Yeah.
So as you said, it's that box of like, well, you can be the stay-at-home mom and you're valued for that. But now what about the women that don't want to have kids, or frankly don't want to ever be married?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we value those things as if that's the only badge of honor, and it's not. And again, Melissa, just like you, I would have been the same, you know, judgy of those things, and yes, pointing the finger or thinking, why would you not want to get married? Or, you know, why do you not want to have kids? And again, now, because thank goodness, decades later, look at those things so differently.
Yeah.
But that's, yes, that's something I would love to see changing, is women supporting, you know, supporting one another kind of no matter what, and really elevating one another. And again, it comes back to those desires, right? If we've got a desire, as you said, to do a side hustle, a desire to give up the big career and stay at home and become an artist, right? Whatever those things are, I think we need more conversations around honoring those. And as you say, not actually, you know, behind the scenes, because it's often very passive aggressive as well. These are the things they often, I was never on the direct, well, once or twice actually, kind of on the direct receiving end of some pretty harsh comments. But honestly, on the whole, it was more rumors and gossiping that found its way back to me, which again is just really damaging.
So true.
Really damaging. Yeah. And I'd love, that's a part of a conversation for women that I would love to be changing. Like, let's stop that.
That's one of the main reasons that I created this series, is because in my work, and I'm sure you see this with your clients as well, that idea that it's lonely at the top is not just some cliche phrase. It's like very real. And especially the more leadership and face forward that you are in your business, being the face of your business, it's like, I can't expose anything. I expose an inch, they'll take a mile. And because we have this culture of like, even those closest to us, where it feels like they're going to tear us down. And so having these conversations where other successful businesswomen can hear these interviews and think, I'm not alone. Like,
Yes.
thank you, you know, and I agree. And let's do change that culture, so that we're never those ones. And also,
or at least checking ourselves, right? That we're, you say,
yeah,
we're human beings as well. I mean, that's the piece, right? We've got to give ourselves permission to be human, and it's the, as I say, I certainly challenge myself to have a lot of awareness around that and catch myself when I'm getting judgy. I mean, even today, and this is an example, right? I've come back from, and I think, you know, we're, at the end of the day, we're harsh judges of ourselves, but we're harsh judges of ourselves because systemically it exists, right? So I'm looking at myself today. I'm jet lagged. I've come back from the UK, lovely trip, but big time difference. My hair's frizzy and not all polished. It will be later because I'm speaking tomorrow. And this could be, I kind of look at myself in the camera and go, oh my gosh, like you look a bit tired, Vanessa, your hair's frizzy. And it's like, wow, there it is, right? All of that judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of saying, just show up and be you, like, does it really matter? Does it really matter what your hair looks like today? The message surely has got to be better than the look. But I have to constantly catch myself as well, because out there, or society, we are so harshly judged for how we look or if we're having an off day.
Mm-hmm. So true. I always say the reality is our tally marks on the judgment side are so much more. We've got to put ourselves in spaces and even be that voice of those spaces of tally marks on the other side, saying like, worthy just as you are, totally enough, like all of
Yes.
those things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, your worth is not tied up in like, beautiful hair or fantastic nails or whatever other things they could be.
Love that. Well, Vanessa, as we wrap up, and I've just enjoyed this conversation so much, I always ask one final question of my interviewees, which is, again, just an opportunity to get a peek at your heart. Tell us about a moment or two that felt like the most fulfilling experiences in your life.
Gosh, most fulfilling. It's a great question. I mean, definitely for me, giving birth to another human being, just phenomenal. And my relationship today, I mean, they're grown-up adults, working out their way in the world, but my relationship with my kids is, again, continues to go to deeper levels, and it's something I find continually fulfilling, and certainly my marriage. So I would, those are kind of key pieces there. For me, I think it's now the kind of what I'm finding fulfilling today is kind of the place where I'm leaning into next. I mean, I love the work we do with clients. So seeing the clients get their breakthroughs, get their new results, take their business to the next level, hire new people, pay themselves more, be happy. I mean, that for me is just the gift that keeps on giving, and why I do what I do, because frankly, it never gets old, right? And of course, there are days when it's tough and like everything, but that is hugely fulfilling. And now I'm really looking at, what do the next 10 years look like? So what does my next level of fulfillment look like? I'm pretty close to defining it. I mean, and listen, it's not for anyone that might be listening and thinking, where's she going with this? It's not going to be some massive, right? It's a dialing in of what we're currently doing.
You're not leaving the country again?
No, I might just travel a bit more, because that's what we're doing a lot of this year now that, COVID hopefully is like behind us. But I am looking at dialing in what we're doing and messaging around that, and then, being able to create a much bigger kind of platform for what we're doing. That feels scary, exciting, sacred, fulfilling. It's like all of those things. And I'm kind of navigating that right now, and just again, it's leaning back into those desires that we started with. And this is that there's another level of that that's coming through me right now. And by the way, for anybody else that's listening in, for me, when I lean into that, it's always a painful process. So I'm just saying, if other people, I'm envious, Melissa, of people that get downloads and they say, oh my gosh, this comes to me so quickly, and I get this divine download, and then I take it and it's done. I'm like, that never happens to me. That doesn't. I have to feel a lot of discomfort, a few sleepless nights, possibly some tears, and then it gets clear. So I'm in that process, I'm in that process right now, and I know that there will be a next level of fulfillment on the other side of it.
Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for your vulnerability, to show that a little bit of what it looks like as you go through the process. I've loved this conversation so much, Vanessa. Tell us where people can follow you if they want to come and check out more of what you're doing.
Yeah, best place is honestly main website, businessgrowthacademy.com. It's businessgrowthacademy.com. There's actually a free download right there on my book called The $1 Million Question, which is really a question that every single woman should be answering. So there's just a great freebie right there that most women say is pretty transformational.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to go check that out as well, Vanessa. Thank you guys so much for watching. And wasn't this just a delight? Thank you so much again, Vanessa, for showing up with your heart and for all the passionate work that you do in the world for women. And guys, don't miss another episode. Go check out the website and make sure you're subscribed to my email so you can get notified every time we talk to one of these amazing women. Thanks, Vanessa. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.